Hey everyone, it's Minty and today I am testing out the new PASTEL Arrtx markers. I'm so excited to colour and design some characters. First we've got to open this package. The amount of protection that's gone into these markers is insane, so let's see if it's worth it. I love how the box has a handle on the top, so if you want to move around easily, that's no problem. My first impression of the outside is that the packaging is adorable, but on the inside we have this small thank you letter along with an A4 size swatch sheet, which is about to be very helpful. These markers are dual-ended, which means we've got a chisel nib on one end, and on the other we have a fine tip, which means you can cover big areas or small details depending on what you're drawing. The colour selection is looking pretty good, and they've even included a black marker, which I did not expect. If you've used alcohol markers before, then you know the colours on the lids never match the actual colour of the ink, so that's why we are using this swatch sheet, and honestly I'm glad I did because the colours are so much more pastel when you put them down on paper. I am actually very impressed with how light they've managed to get these colours. Usually I have the opposite problem with pastel sets, but this is really delivering on the name. In fact, they are so light and pastel that I was struggling to think of ideas for my drawing when I remembered that I have these adorable Jellycats. This first one is called Sprinkle and it literally has the perfect colour scheme for a pastel design. And next we have this tiny strawberry tart. I think it's so adorable and I've called her Creamy just because I think that's super cute. And we are going to draw these characters on paper and then turn them into humans. Let me know which design ends up being your favourite because I think these have some really good potential. Diving into my sketchbook now, it's actually very on theme with the pastel cover. But first we are drawing the bases for the bodies, starting off with the birthday cake. She just has my average base for a girl body that I usually do. However, for the strawberry tart, she is going to be much smaller. She's either going to be a young teen or a child, and the whole idea is just to have her look cute because look how cute the Jellycat is. I just want to do it justice. The only issue with this character is that it's not exactly pastel, so we're going to have to work around that and draw a pastel version, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay, now the bases are done. I've just sketched out plain bodies. They've got faces, but they haven't got any hair or any clothes or anything else that we're going to be adding later. First, I just wanted to draw the Jellycats in their natural form, so here they are. And I've already erased it because we are going to colour in the characters. I'm using both the chisel nib and the fine tip for this. It's a really small space that I'm colouring in, however the chisel tip is still small enough to fit in it, so I was sort of just messing around with both and seeing what I like the feel of. I had a feeling the birthday cake would suit these pens perfectly, and I was right because I found the perfect matches with the colours, especially the green. I think that one is such a nice colour and it matches really well. I did actually kind of cheat and use a different pen for the legs because obviously there is not a dark enough brown. However, that's the only time I switched my alcohol markers in this video, so that's the only bit of cheating we've got. Otherwise, they're all going to be pastel colours, plus the black. Honestly, I didn't have any crazy strong ideas for this character. However, I did know the general direction which I wanted to head in, which is birthdays, parties, sprinkles, rainbows. You get the vibe, and that's exactly what the Jellycat embodies, so I wanted to transfer that into our character. A pastel set like this is really useful if you're looking for a variety of pale skin tone colours because technically those count as pastel, so you're going to find a few of them. Obviously, if you want any darker skin tones or hair colours, you're not going to find that in a pastel set. However, it is a great addition if you've already got a wide range of different colours. I don't think I've ever used any skin tones which are this light before. I don't know if you guys can notice, but I definitely can because I had to layer it a little bit so that it would actually show up on camera. One thing about pastel markers in general is that you have to be really careful because they can pick up basically anything that's on the page. So for example, graphite. If you don't erase your drawing properly, you're definitely going to see those grey lines underneath your colour because it's simply not dark enough to cover it. And if your line art isn't fully dry, just be aware that that is going to bleed. Although that does depend on what kind of line art you use. For me personally, it definitely does bleed with the types of pens that I use, but that's why I do my line art afterwards, and sometimes I like it to bleed. So as you can see, I've used this pink line art on the skin, and I'm actually going to go over it later with the pen because I want to bring some of that pink blush into the skin. I've decided to go with white hair because that is basically what the cake has as icing. However, it doesn't really end up looking white later character because I added so many highlights and ribbons of colour into it to represent the sprinkles. The hair being white as a base was actually super easy because the paper's already white, and then after that it just needs shading, and I used a very light purple. You can almost not see it. I did overwork the hair, I'll admit that. I added way too much line art because I was so worried that it was way too pastel to even see. I guess I'm just not used to it, but it's a good thing because when you get a pastel set you want it to be super light. However, I just kind of took over it all with the line art and added a lot of colour using that. But at the same time, it is just part of my style recently to use coloured line art. I've been doing it for ages. I use biros, and I wasn't going to do a drawing with only alcohol markers. That is not something I ever do because I have to have my pencil sketch and I have to have my line art. Some of you might actually want to try this if you've got this pastel set. What I usually do is I just hatch in the darker areas with a coloured line art, and then it gives the appearance of shading. Okay, let's go back to talking about the character because I feel like we've done a 1-2 skip a few since I coloured in the hair. On her head we have a party hat with the same colours as the candles because that was the closest thing I could think of that still matched the vibe, so I added that in and I really love it. Then when it comes to the dress, I don't think the design is that exciting. If you know me, you know I do love doing fashion designs, but I wasn't really feeling it today, so I sort of did a very basic design based off of the cake. We've got the colours in order, and then we've got a bit of extra fluff and bedazzling going on. And this is her final look. I meant for the yellow section to be a really big ribbon around the waist, and you can just imagine that there is a big bow at the back. My favourite part about this drawing is how well the colours match, and my least favourite part is probably the lazy dress design, but I do really love the hair, and I also like the party hat. Even though it was super simple, I think it looks really cute. And yeah, this is the final result. Well, the final result of our little sprinkle birthday cake. However, we have got a whole other character to design next, which I'm very excited for. This one honestly really stumped me, and I think there are a couple of reasons why. Number one is that I decided to go with the child/young teenager look, and I'm not very used to doing that, so I was a little bit nervous, and I think that just affected how I approached this design. And reason number two as to why I found this difficult is something that I already kind of touched on, and I think this is the main reason, and it's that our strawberry tart character is not actually pastel coloured. The only part of this character which is actually light and pastel is that custardy, creamy yellow, which is in the middle of the tart. And then we've got the bright red of the strawberries, bright red of the green leaf. Then as for the pastry, I suppose it's bordering on pastel, but I didn't really know if I had any colours that would match it anyway, so I knew there had to be some layering. And of course we have the feet. However, I did miss out the feet on the cake in her design. I didn't really want to include a dark brown because I just didn't have that in this set. I think I was mostly worried about the strawberry colour because the red is just so bright that I didn't know how I was going to get that, and I ended up just deciding, you know what is a pastel version of red? It's pink, so let's just go with pink. However, I did use my red biro for a red outline just to get more of a reddy tone of pink than, you know, bright pink, and I don't know if it worked or not. However, you can still tell that it's strawberry, and you will see that the end result actually kind of matches quite well, even though the colours are clearly much lighter in my drawing than on the real toy. Okay, so we've spoken about the hair colour now, but we have not mentioned the hairstyle. Guys, don't come at me. I don't even know what's going on here. I just really wanted to get that vision of a bunch of strawberries into her hair, and I decided to take that quite literally. So she basically has these buns or like poofs on her hair that resemble the strawberry shapes. It kind of just looks like she does have real strawberries sitting on her head, but the idea is that it's a hairstyle that sort of matches the vibe. I don't know, it doesn't really make any sense, but I think it looks pretty cute. And as for the leaves, I think the same thing goes because I really just plopped them in there. I didn't really know how I was going to incorporate the green of the leaves, so I put literal leaves in there. That sort of decision is not very new for me because I actually love putting food and incorporating food into characters' hair or plopping something on top of their head. I just think it looks so cute, and I don't care if it's not realistic, I just like it. Again, I was stumped when it came to the dress design, and this all sort of boiled down to how was I going to incorporate the more brown and tan colours into this drawing when I don't have any brown or tan colours. And I went with with yellow, and I just layered a bunch of different colours on top of it. I even layered the pink back into it, so it's basically a yellow and pink theme with green accents, so it doesn't match fully, but I do really like it. And here are the final results. They look really, really good together. However, I think there's something missing, and it's that the background is completely white. However, that is not new for me. I do that all the time because I'm too lazy and I don't like drawing backgrounds. However, we can do this. I debated on different ideas for the background. However, polka dots was the easiest answer, and specifically rainbow polka dots, because they match the sprinkle vibe, and they also match the strawberry tart as well because it's all pastel, so it all goes together. And I really, really love how it turns out. It's simple but effective. Thank you so much to Arrtx for sending me these pens. I love how it turned out, and let me know in the comments how you guys thought it turned out as well.